Before I get into today's story, let me just say this. Dating in the modern world is already hard enough. But every once in a while, you meet someone who makes you realize just how lucky you are to be single. Today's story is about one of those moments, the kind that starts out normal, then slowly unravels into a full-blown meltdown. So sit back, because this one goes from, "Hey, you seem nice," to, "I need to change my number in record time." Story 1. I lost my boyfriend to his cat. I never expected that the biggest rival in my relationship would be a 7-pound ball of fur with a pink nose and an attitude. But here we are. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and for the past year I've been dating this guy who on paper is everything I should want. He's handsome, funny, stable, affectionate toward me, yes, but also toward something else. His cat. His beloved, precious, irreplaceable cat. And I swear sometimes I feel like that animal outranks me in every category that matters. He's had her for years long before he met me, and I get it. People love their pets. But the way he treats her, I honestly think if that cat asked him to file her taxes, he'd do it. Whenever she curls up on his lap, he'll freeze like a statue. He won't get up for water, won't grab the TV remote, won't even move an inch. He'll just look at me and say, "I can't." She's catting. As if that's an official medical condition. And guess who ends up getting the water? The remote. The snack he suddenly needs, me. Apparently, I'm the designated human assistant because Her Majesty is asleep on his thigh. But the part that truly gets under my skin is the way he greets her. Every time he comes home, she runs to the door, and he lights up like he's seeing the love of his life. He bends down, scratches her ears, and says, "There's my girl. There she is," over and over. And meanwhile, I'm literally standing right there like an extra in my own relationship. I started wondering if anyone else would find this weird. I even thought just for a moment about suggesting he rehome her, but I knew that would go over about as well as suggesting he amputate his own leg. So I swallowed the jealousy and told myself I was being irrational. Then one day we had a vet bill come in, $600. And I reacted the way someone who grew up in a very practical, very non-pet-centric family would react. I said, "Wouldn't putting her down be cheaper?" He stared at me like I had just confessed to a crime. I didn't think it was that shocking. My family always treated pets like tools. They served a purpose. You didn't spend hundreds of dollars repairing a tool. But his face looked like I had personally threatened his child. We didn't talk much after that. And because the silence felt heavy, I posted on Reddit to see if I was actually being unreasonable. The answers were brutal. Apparently, being jealous of a cat makes you some kind of villain on the internet. People tore me apart. I sat with those comments for hours, and eventually I thought, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this kind of dynamic. So I decided to break up with him. I thought he'd be hurt or sad or at least surprised. But when I explained why, he let out a relieved exhale. Not sad, not angry, relieved. And then he said, "Good. I've actually been trying to figure out how to end things since you suggested euthanizing my cat to save money." He said it calmly, like he was discussing weekend plans. He told me to hand back the apartment key and have my things out by Friday. No drama, no argument, just a clean surgical separation. Meanwhile, I was standing there suddenly single and apparently the villain of the story. Later, I added an edit to my post explaining that where I came from, spending that much on a pet is unheard of. But honestly, the more I thought about it, the more I realized the issue wasn't the cat bill or the pet culture difference. It was the fact that I genuinely didn't understand the bond he had with her, and he couldn't tolerate the way I viewed animals. And that's how I lost my boyfriend. To his cat. A cat that apparently was always in first place, and I never even knew I was competing. Story 2. My boyfriend's phone. Got stolen, and so did our entire relationship. I never thought my relationship would fall apart because of a stolen phone, but somehow that's exactly what happened. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and for the past 3.5 years I've been dating a man who works for an airline. His job means he travels internationally a lot, usually 3 or 4 days at a time, different countries, different time zones. And honestly, it never bothered me. When we first started dating, the travel schedule was already part of the deal, so I adapted. One of his recent trips took him to Belgium. Not exactly a country you'd think of as dangerous, right? But one night he went out drinking with the other flight attendants. At some point, they got separated and he got mugged. They took his wallet and his phone. He called me from his Apple Watch around 2 in the morning crying. Actually crying. He sounded shaken, scared, confused, and all my instincts went straight into protection mode. I asked if he was okay, told him to lock himself in the hotel room, and said I'd take care of everything on my end. He gave me the password to his iPad back home so I could mark his phone as lost and disable it. I did exactly that. And then, because curiosity has a really cruel sense of timing, I made the mistake of tapping the Messages app. I didn't expect to find anything. Maybe a few random texts from coworkers, maybe silly group chats. I honestly just wanted reassurance that he was who I thought he was. But instead, I found 2 years' worth of messages that shattered everything. There were multiple women, multiple threads, photos, plans, conversations about meeting up while I was at work, messages sent from our apartment, the place we shared. He had brought people into our home, into our bed while I was gone, telling them the same sweet, affectionate things he used to tell me in the beginning. Meanwhile, he had been telling me he didn't want to be intimate because he had health issues, because he felt insecure, because he needed time. No, he didn't need time. He needed new excuses to hide what he was already doing. I just sat there on the couch holding the iPad, reading through all these little betrayals stacked on top of each other like a book he never planned for me to open. And the worst part, deep down, I wasn't even shocked. I had felt something was off for months. I ignored all of it because I wanted to believe we were okay. He called me again from his watch later, trying to update me about the mugging, and I had to pretend everything was normal. I didn't tell him what I saw until he came home. I needed to see his face when he realized the truth was out. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He looked at me, sighed, and said, "I didn't want you to find out like that." Like that was the problem. I kept thinking about whether I was wrong for opening his messages. I don't usually go through people's stuff. It's not who I am. But that night, something in my gut pushed me to check. People always say that snooping is wrong. But this time, snooping didn't break my relationship. His choices did. And honestly, if I hadn't opened that iPad, I'd still be living with a man who kissed me goodbye in the morning and then brought someone else into my apartment by the afternoon. So am I the bad guy for looking maybe. But he's the one who built a whole double life behind a locked screen and counted on me never noticing. And in the end, the only thing that got stolen in Belgium was the last piece of trust I had in him. Story 3. I told my cousin Beans we're woke, and he had an identity crisis over chili. My cousin has always been a little dramatic, but lately he's taken it to a whole new level. He's obsessed, like truly obsessed with the idea of everything being woke. Food, movies, dogs, socks, the weather. If something exists, he has probably accused it of being woke at least once. And before all that nonsense took over his personality, he was known for one thing: his chili. And I'll admit, the man makes good chili. He grinds his own chili flakes, has his own spice blend, and he spent years perfecting it. The one signature thing about his recipe is that he always adds kidney beans. Real beans. Not canned. Not pre-cooked. Beans he actually soaks overnight like he's preparing a ritual. So last weekend he invited me over while he was cooking a fresh pot of his famous chili. And as I watched him stir it with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred ceremonies, I got an idea. A stupid idea. A small, harmless little prank. Or at least that's what I thought. I said casually, "I'm surprised you still put beans in your chili." He looked up immediately. "Why wouldn't I?" I shrugged and said, "I don't know. Beans in chili are kind of woke now. Everyone's been talking about it. You would have thought I told him the government banned oxygen." His entire face changed. He looked confused, then worried, then suspicious. "What do you mean, woke beans?" So I doubled down. I told him that traditional conservative Texas chili never used beans, that hippie liberals in the 60s started adding them, and that modern woke scientists keep promoting beans as a replacement for meat because of climate change. Utter nonsense. Obviously. But he didn't know that. He went quiet for the rest of dinner. Didn't say a word. Didn't even look at the pot of chili the same way. I honestly assumed he was pretending that he'd come back with a joke of his own. We've always messed with each other. But the next weekend, when I went back to his place, something felt wrong. He was making chili again, but the pot smelled different. No beans, not a single one. He had completely changed his recipe after 15 years. I asked him, "Where are the beans?" And he said dead serious, "I don't mess with that woke garbage." I stared at him waiting for the punchline. There was none. I told him I was just joking, that beans aren't woke, that I made the whole thing up. And instead of laughing or rolling his eyes, he snapped. He got angry, like actually angry. He dumped the entire pot of chili into the sink, slammed the pot down, and told everyone to leave. I honestly thought he was messing with me at first. But no, he was furious. Later that night, he texted me word for word, "I researched this online and you lied to me. Beans are not woke. How could you make me question my chili?" That was the moment I realized the prank had crossed into some strange psychological territory. He wasn't mad about being tricked. He was mad about questioning his identity, the part of him that proudly, defiantly puts beans in chili. We went back and forth a bit, and according to him, even though we've pranked each other since childhood, this was too far. I had betrayed him by making him doubt his recipe. He demanded an apology. I told him I'd apologize when he admitted that maybe he cared too much about this woke versus not woke nonsense. If beans were woke, why would it matter? It's chili. But he ignored the question completely. In the end, he didn't get an apology, and I didn't get my chili. And apparently, this is the new normal for us. I still can't believe the sentence he actually sent me. "You made me question my chili. I didn't know a man could be emotionally attached to legumes, but now I do." Story 4. The eye doctor's assistant asked me to take a vision test. I don't have eyes. I've been blind my entire life. Not visually impaired blind. My eyes were removed when I was a toddler due to medical complications I don't even remember. I have prosthetic eyes now, mostly for appearance and to keep the sockets healthy. And honestly, after 20-something years, I don't even think about them anymore. They're just part of my routine. But apparently, that concept is too advanced for some people. A while back, I went to my eye doctor. Not for vision, obviously, but for the usual socket checkups and maintenance. They examine the tissue, the pressure, make sure everything is healthy. I've gone to this office for years. But they had a new assistant that day. And, oh boy, I don't think he read my chart at all. When I checked in, he called my name and walked me to the exam room. Well, walked with me is generous. I had to tell him multiple times which way to go, where the chair was, where the door handle was. You'd think a blind woman needing guidance would be a hint. Apparently not. Once we got settled, he said, completely serious. Okay, before we start, I just need you to take a vision test. I said I'm completely blind. He nodded like he understood and said, right, but we still need a vision reading for the exam. I thought maybe he misspoke. So I said again, I don't have functional eyes. At all. He gave me this reassuring smile adults use on toddlers. I know, but we can't do a full exam unless we have a current vision score. At this point, I was torn between laughing and questioning if I accidentally walked into some kind of prank show. I even told him, there is nothing to test. I physically cannot see. And he responded, still cheerful. It'll be quick, quick. How exactly do you quickly measure vision on someone with no eyes? After the fourth back and forth, something in me snapped, not angrily, just exhausted. So I said, you want to examine my eyes? Fine. Then I reached up, popped out one of my prosthetic eyes, held it out toward him and said, here, start with this one. The silence that followed was magnificent. I couldn't see his expression, obviously, but I heard the sharp inhale, the shuffle backward, the little gasp of pure horror. It was the sound of a man watching every assumption he ever made crumble in real time. A second later, he fumbled for the door and mumbled something like, I'll get the doctor. And then he practically sprinted away. When the doctor came in, she apologized profusely and practically dragged me back to the normal part of the appointment. She said the assistant was new and still learning. I didn't have the heart to tell her he might need more than learning, he might need a whole new career path. On the ride home, my husband asked why I didn't take my guide dog that day. Honestly, I just wanted a simple appointment. And clearly, I was the one giving most of the guidance. To this day, I still wonder what the assistant imagined that exam would be like. Read the third line on the chart. What chart that one on the wall? What wall? Sometimes I wish I'd stayed in the room long enough to hear how he explained it to his coworkers. Story 5. My ex glowed up at the dog park and barely remembered me. I wasn't expecting to run into my past at the dog park, and I definitely wasn't expecting it to look better than I remembered. But that's exactly what happened yesterday. I'm a 31-year-old guy, and 2 years ago I dated this woman who at the time had some habits I just couldn't handle. She smoked heavily, drank a lot, and had a lifestyle that was basically the opposite of mine. I run, I try to eat healthy, I barely drink. I just couldn't picture a long-term future with someone whose daily routine was cigarettes and wine. She was around 200 pounds back then, not that her weight bothered me. She actually had a beautiful face and a genuinely great personality. But the smoking, the drinking, the recklessness, I couldn't look past it. When I broke up with her, she told me she wanted time to change, to quit her bad habits, to become healthier. I didn't believe her. I've heard too many people promise to change only to go back to the same thing a week later. So I ended it. Yesterday, I was sitting at the dog park, lost in my own thoughts, when I saw her walking a puppy. At first, I wasn't even sure it was her. She looked different. And not just a little different, dramatically different. She had this confident walk, this athletic posture, and I actually hesitated before calling out her name. When she turned around, it hit me. It really was her, but completely transformed. She's quit drinking, quit smoking, started running, practices mixed martial arts. She lost weight, toned her body, and honestly looks like she could walk down a runway without a single touch-up. The potential I used to see in her face, she unlocked all of it. And here's the thing, she didn't seem thrilled to see me. She wasn't rude, just cold, distant. Like someone greeting an old coworker they barely remember. She made small talk, clearly waiting for the conversation to end. And the whole time I kept thinking about how wrong I had been. She actually did what she said she would do. She changed her life completely. And I never imagined she would. After we parted ways, I sat in my car for a long time just thinking. She was the first person I lived with, the first long-term relationship I ever had. And I left her because I didn't believe she could grow. And now, she's grown in ways I didn't even know were possible. Meanwhile, I'm still me. Same routines, same habits, same everything. I'm not saying I want her back. I know that moment in the park, her annoyed, tight smile, was her way of telling me she's moved on. And honestly, she has every right to feel that way. I hurt her. I doubted her. And she proved me wrong without saying a single word. I don't need advice. There's nothing to fix. I just needed to let this out. Because seeing your ex glow up into the best version of herself while treating you like you're barely a footnote in her story, yeah, that does something to you. Story 6. Gave a guy my number, and he instantly had a full-blown meltdown. I used to think giving someone your number was the normal first step to getting to know them, a harmless, simple interaction. But after what happened to me recently, I'm honestly reconsidering the whole concept. I'm a woman, and a few days ago while I was out shopping, this guy approached me. Cute, well-dressed, polite. He complimented me in a way that didn't feel creepy, and I genuinely thought, okay, this is nice. Maybe something good could come from this. I gave him my number and he seemed excited, but respectful. At least that's what I thought. About an hour later, I saw a missed call from him. I was busy, so I didn't answer. Nothing unusual. I figured we'd talk later. Then the messages started. First, hey, I want to talk, not text. Call me back when you get a sec. Reasonable enough. But before I even had time to respond, the tone shifted. You've been off the phone for a while now. Don't bother calling me back since I'm obviously not important enough for you. I just stared at the screen, thinking, is this the same guy I met earlier? The one who smiled like he was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. Because suddenly he sounded like someone who'd been stewing in bitterness for years. Then he sent another message this time, dragging race into it out of nowhere. He accused me of preferring full black guys to mixed guys, said I was insecure, that I was scared to be seen in public with someone who looked like him, and that I only liked men with fake rhinoplasty noses. I kid you not, this man went from zero to sociologist in a breakdown in less than 5 minutes. I responded as calmly as I could. I told him he didn't know me, that he was projecting, and that I had been busy. That's when the real meltdown began. He sent paragraphs, actual walls of text, calling me disrespectful, arrogant, low IQ, scared, a coward. He took shots at my race, his race, everybody's race. It was like watching someone argue with 12 imaginary people at once. He even said, you obviously didn't want to date a mixed guy. I can tell from your behavior the moment I saw you, which makes absolutely no sense because he's the one who approached me. I finally told him to delete my number, that I wasn't interested anymore, and that this whole thing was not okay. And his response, well, you should have said that earlier. That was disrespectful of you after I showed you so much respect. Respect. This man thinks harassing a stranger with racial monologues and emotional tantrums within the first hour is respect. He ended with a message so unhinged I read it twice, just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. He accused me, and I quote, of being a typical arrogant white girl who teams up with full black men to hate on light skins. At that point, I wasn't even angry. I was just impressed by his creativity. I didn't know a man could build an entire conspiracy theory out of one unanswered phone call. I blocked him immediately. And now I'm here wondering how a 2-minute exchange in a grocery store turned into a full-blown psychological thriller. I gave a cute guy my number, and somehow he revealed his true colors before we even had a real conversation. Honestly, thank God I didn't answer that first call. I think dodging that man was the biggest blessing I've had all month. If nothing else, I hope this story serves as a reminder sometimes the universe shows you someone's true personality immediately, just so you don't waste your time finding out the hard way. And honestly, that's a blessing, disguised as chaos. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to stick around. There are more wild Reddit moments where this came from. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.